Good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar. We're here in the Institute of Technology in Sligo in the northwest of Ireland, and I'm here with my boss, Brian Mulligan, who's the coordinator of the Locomotion project. And we're in the last day of the last week of the 6-week MOOC, Making MOOCs on a Budget. So welcome to the webinar. And first of all, I'd like to ask you, Brian, to maybe lay out the purpose of this webinar. Why did you think it was important to have this today?
Well, I'm thinking about it. We sort of three reasons for doing this. We could say that the main one is to address maybe any emerging issues that are coming up. We asked people to submit questions before the event. Are there any issues that you think are coming up? We've looked at the MOOC and we've tried to see what we think are the emerging issues. So to some extent, it was to look at emerging issues. What are the things that have come out that maybe we didn't predict as we were giving the MOOC? The other thing is we would say, what next in the MOOC? We're hoping that everybody now goes on to build their own MOOC. So how are we going to do about that? What are the issues that are going to emerge in building their own MOOC? And particularly about how are you going to keep in contact with the group? Build a community of people who are all interested in building their own MOOCs. Because there isn't enough in this to build your MOOC. You need more detailed information, and we're going to see if we can build a community to support each other. Now, the other is, what about doing a live webinar like this? Can we use live webinars like this to generate content for courses? So we're going to look at that as two ways. And one, we're going to have a raw webinar. It's live. Is it useful? And we will just, the recording of this will be automatically posted. But maybe we can take this and chop bits out of it and take the most relevant parts and see if they could make good learning resources as well. So we really want to look at this conversational webinar to see if it could make a useful learning resource.
Yeah, I think that's actually really interesting, and it's something that has come up, that webinars, I think they're very useful for, they're convenient, they're flexible, they're good for connecting people who can't be in a place. But the actual format, some people have said that they're usually too long. Like very often they take an hour, and maybe only 20% of it is what people are looking for. So yeah, I think that might be interesting. And other people have asked, for kind of behind the scenes tips on how to do these. And I think what we will be doing is cutting it down with Camtasia. That's the software we're using to do it with, for maybe a 10-minute slot that could be more entertaining or something. What do you think?
Well, I'm not a big fan of putting a huge amount of work into it, but I'm interested to see what will happen. So we'll probably have to download this as an MP4 from YouTube and then bring it into Camtasia, look at the bits that we think are more interesting or less interesting, chop bits out and chop it into smaller and upload it again. Now, there's a fair amount of work in that. So I would say it's an open question. Would that be any more useful? And remember, you're going to take an editing function, whereas your opinion about what's most useful may not be the same as anyone else's. One of the things I love about the videos is, even in YouTube, is you can watch them at double speed and you can go flying through them and then pause at the things that you think are most important. Maybe we should be considering some sort of a labeling system so that we, what you can do in YouTube is you can set a link to a specific point in a video. And we could say, the following topics were covered, and here's a link to this topic, a link to this topic, and a link to this topic. That might work.
So you mean to use that for the full version of the webinar? And then we just chop bits up and make maybe a 7-minute version for people who just want to see something a little bit more polished?
Well, as I say, you could do that, but I think that's a heavy workload. Whereas if you were to identify the starting point in the video of particularly interesting ideas or useful ideas, just have links to those starting points. That'd be a much quicker way. Maybe we shouldn't be getting into the details here.
Okay, so you're saying that the next step, so people who maybe have done the 6 modules, they've gone through the modules, they've watched the videos, they've done maybe some of the quizzes or some of the assignments. At this point now, what, could you give them tips on how to actually get started, or what should they be doing now?
Well, I'm a great believer that you need to be building stuff almost to find out what you need to know.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we wanted to do in the MOOC was to give them an overview picture of what they needed to achieve, to give them assistance in making decisions, like what teaching method will suit best. Will I create my own videos? Will I use open education resources? Will I have more discussions? And when they have a good idea of the style of their MOOC, then they need to start constructing the MOOC. And that could be searching for resources and lining them up, making quizzes or whatever, or actually building their own resources. So I would probably say start doing that now, but you will come across blockages.
Yeah. And so what can they do? Or what
that's where I think the community comes in. That we did consider it to be an important part of this course, to build a community of people that would help each other.
Yeah.
I would say that I feel we haven't hugely succeeded because we haven't recruited enough people. I think there are far more people across the world who are interested in building MOOCs on a budget than we managed to get through to and to get recruited. But we do have a small group who are interested in doing it, and they should be able to support each other, and we should be able to build that group over time.
Yeah. So I think that's really important as well. I mean, in last week's newsletter, we posted something about the importance of people building their profile or filling in their profile to make it easier to identify other people who are maybe doing building a MOOC in the similar area or something. So I think that's, it is really important. And we also had a LinkedIn conversation started. Do you think that's a good way to keep the community alive after the MOOC is finished? Or?
You know, that was my original feeling, that we would do the MOOC in Canvas and that we would move the community into LinkedIn, and that's where it would build up over time, that we may have one delivery of a MOOC, another delivery, and that at each delivery, a certain amount of interested people would move into the LinkedIn group, so we could build a critical mass of interested people who would mutually support each other. Now, we haven't managed to get the discussions going in LinkedIn yet, so I suppose I'm questioning my judgment. And there's been some quite interesting discussions within Canvas on it. Possibly maybe we needed to choose one platform and that was it. So that maybe we should have driven everybody out to Canvas and saying every discussion driven out to LinkedIn, every discussion. So in a way, I sort of feel I don't know what's best in that. I have a gut feeling that LinkedIn is the best place to be doing the ongoing discussions, but we'll keep an open mind to that. If people want to, we leave Canvas open for a few months. So if people want to continue discussing, they can do it in there.
There was somebody actually on the discussion forum. She was talking about Snapchat. Now, I'd love to know more about it. Like, is there some advantage with Snapchat over LinkedIn, or do you know anything about this? Or
I'm afraid I'm a little bit. It can be quite hard keeping up the technology. I'd have to ask my kids if Snapchat would be better.
Or if anybody knows anything about Snapchat, text in or send us something.
There is a certain danger that we have a relatively small community for the moment, and we'll end up distributing ourselves across various platforms. To me, I sort of believe that the group we have and the type of people we are, we're very much at the professional end. We're educators. So I always feel that LinkedIn is possibly the most appropriate platform. I know that Facebook is very popular in the US among professional groups as well. And maybe there are more people on Facebook, but LinkedIn seems to be, that's just my feeling.
Maybe. What you're saying about having a small group, I think that is definitely a point. But, this is the third delivery of this MOOC, and we've had, a few hundred people on each delivery. And sometimes I feel that we've kind of lost that community as we move on to the next delivery. And if we had an external platform, if we had the discussions on an external platform, we could build it over time and create a sustainable community rather than moving from cohort to cohort and leaving the discussions on a closed platform. I don't know.
I think, I think you're right. And I think we made the mistake of not directing all discussions out to LinkedIn.
Mhm.
We should have bet on one or the other.
Yeah.
And I think I would have put them all on LinkedIn. And the reason I think it would have worked is actually the community was small.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is probably not suitable for large communities, although I'm a member of some groups on LinkedIn that have sort of, 5,000, 10,000 members on the group, and there still isn't a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
So maybe LinkedIn can scale up quite large and be a good area for it.
So another thing you were saying there was that people should, identify the information needs they have or the gaps they have in, using tools or whatever. So I think we went into little depth on the platform about the range of tools available and the range of platforms, but maybe we didn't, teach people specifically how to use each tool. So where would people go to get that kind of knowledge?
Well, the way it is with tools, that it's almost horses for courses. If your skills are this way, or if you have access to this equipment or whatever, there's so many variables. This tool has certain advantages over this one. So you've got to select which tool is best for you. And because there's quite a few tools available, we couldn't provide detailed information on how to use each tool.
Yeah.
One of the great things nowadays is that almost all the tools that are available out there have people out there who are posting free instruction templates or instruction guides, and the companies themselves, of the tool that build the tools, there's lots of online materials out there. So to some extent, I feel that this needs to be driven by the users. We give them certain criteria for selecting their tools. We might look at some tools and say, well, this is good for this, but you've got to select your tool. And then you've got to start trying to use it. And if you find any difficulty using it, that's where the community comes in. So again, I would say next step is choose your tool, go get it, start trying to build something with it. And if you have any difficulty at all, ask. And if you have difficulties selecting the tool, if what we've given you to date is not enough, ask questions of the community.
I just thought of one resource that I found really useful in the past. I don't know if you know it, it's lynda.com, lynda.com. And I signed up to that a few years ago when I bought Camtasia, and I just couldn't figure it out because I'm just not at all technical. So I signed up, and it was a free 30-day trial. And I think the Camtasia course was about 10 hours, and it was really, really brilliant. And they have a huge range of courses on software. And then I think if you sign up for a monthly subscription, it's not massively expensive. I'm sure there are lots of others.
Well, we'd probably find that there is a subset of people in this course that are going to use Camtasia. It's not a free tool, but it's a very powerful, low-cost tool. It can do an awful lot. In fact, I would say that one of Camtasia's problem is that there's so much to learn about it, but you can use it in a basic way. So I would say, if you decide to go with Camtasia, in other words, you want to edit your videos afterwards, maybe top and tail them, add some background music, take out the hissing sounds or any background noises, do tricks like that. If you're interested in that, you decide, I'm going to use Camtasia. You can search for your own resources, but again, there's the community there and say, find out who else is using Camtasia so that you know who to go to look for help. And I'm sure there are lots of TechSmith themselves who built Camtasia will have lots of videos online, because of the way Camtasia is used for creating these videos. They use it for creating their own learning materials as well. So the message really so far is use the community. So we're entering that stage where we're get building, use the community. Okay, so this is we're coming to the end of a 2-year project, because this is more than a MOOC, isn't it? It was 3 deliveries of the 5 or 6 week MOOCs, but it's part of a much bigger project that has been taking place over the last 2 years. And I think the question you set out to explore was to see whether we could scale up the production of MOOCs if we managed to find low-cost production methods. So I guess you were thinking, okay, if we can find low-cost ways to making MOOCs, more people would make them, and more people would be learning using this medium. So 2 years on, Brian,
How are you? What are you thinking now?
Well, I think we've certainly proven the point that it can be done at low cost.
Mm-hmm.
And we have found lots of people that agree with us that it can be done at low cost. But certainly what has emerged is that cost is not the major barrier at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like the effort that's required by MOOC builders,
right.
In other words, the number of hours they've got to put in
Mm-hmm.
to building their course. Probably the most interesting discussion that I would feel I got into with the participants on the course is on the tension between effort and quality.
Mm-hmm.
That everybody seems to have a different idea of what they believe is acceptable quality.
Mm-hmm.
I am very much of the belief that that education that we do in the classroom is of varying degrees of quality. Some of it is brilliant, but the most of it is just good,
mm-hmm.
acceptable, what we consider good classroom teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very much of the belief that you can take a good classroom presenter and they can just allow everybody to see what they're doing
mm-hmm.
by doing the same thing they're doing in a classroom in front of a PC and a camera and microphone. And what that's doing is that's allowing potentially millions of people to have free access to what they do in their classroom, which is good. Now, I seem to be in a little bit of conflict with a lot of others who say, no, if you're going to expose your course to such a lot of people, it's well worthwhile putting in the extra effort. And while I do agree that, if you're going to have a big audience, that effort will pay off. But if it means that you don't do it, you've got nowhere. So I would sort of be saying, now I'm getting a little sidetracked from your question here, but I'll just finish this point is that I'm saying is, well, you can never be guaranteed you're going to get millions to watch it anyway. So let's say you're teaching to 40 people in the classroom and say your target is 400 free learners. It's probably well worth doing it with as little effort as you can get away with it, to get it out there to a couple of hundred people and come back. And if it's usually successful, revisit it and redo it at a higher quality. So continuously improve it. Now, having said that, a lot of people don't agree with me on that, and they want it to higher production values. So I would say what's emerging as a challenge, the new challenge, as it were, is how are we going to achieve these enhanced production levels that I think people want when they go public with minimal effort. We're going to have to develop a lot of tricks and techniques that allow people to step up their quality from their classroom to a more professional level, towards a more professional level, but not just, multiply their workload by an order of magnitude.
Yeah.
So you don't want 10 times the workload for your MOOC version of your course. Just because you want to up it to a slightly more professional level. So I think we need to make progress on that. And I think if we were redoing this course, to me, that would be, and we have addressed it to some extent in this. Jorn, particularly in his videos, gave tips and tricks about how to look more professional without spending a lot. I would say that you need a critical mass of activity. If you're going to get into recording short videos and you say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my MOOC online, I'm going to record in total 5 weeks and 4 or 5 minute videos a week. And that's it, I'm never going to do it again. You probably won't. It's your skill level that reduces your workload.
Yeah.
If you can,
the more you do it,
the more you do it.
So
skill. I would say that we're looking to reduce workload. You need to say to yourself, this is a long-term commitment.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a lot of what I teach in MOOC versions?
So I suppose again we're back to the thing that people should just get stuck in and start doing it.
Yeah.
And also start off with kind of managing your expectations of what you can achieve.
Yeah.
And then just keep practicing. And that there was Jorn had a video that I followed to make a studio in my house. Now this was so low cost, and admittedly it took me a while to get it in place, but it was basically made as he recommends, with the books and crates and cardboard boxes and loads of things. So it took a while to set up, but then if you can leave it in one place, basically it's simple. You just go in, you do your recording, you go out. So it's about getting started and maybe putting in a bit of time to setting your things up, and then you get it. And it's the same with using the software. The more you do it, the better you become and the faster you can do it. But sorry, Brian, so just in terms of the production value, and I think it's come out time and time again between this delivery and the last delivery, that a lot of people make the point that, audio is one thing, or the visual is one thing, or fancy images, but they say that, if you really focus on getting good audio, then you're halfway there. This is the most important thing. And little things like, back again to, a question of people asking for some kind of nuts and bolts of, behind the scenes, what we're doing here. So if anybody saw Brian's last webinar, there were two things there. That first of all, you weren't familiar with the software, with the website, and we didn't have great lighting, or the camera was kind of just a little bit funny.
Yeah.
It looked kind of small. So we've done very little between then and now, but we got a little bit better lighting. That's pretty much it. And you're now familiar with the technology. So
yeah, well, the technology, I suspect the last time I was more stressed about the technology. Mm-hmm. We're a bit more comfortable with the technology now. We're just talking to camera and to a microphone here in front of us. And so we're concentrating on what we're doing rather than the technology. Yeah.
So there again, the thing is to just do it, get started, and then keep practicing. And
also, I would say, if you have a set of videos to go through a course, get stuck in. Do video week number 1, video number 1. Mm-hmm. It mightn't be too good. Video number 2, week number 1. Start working your way through it and tweaking your process. Mm. And your skill level is going up. Mm. And you might find by the time you get towards the end, you'll say, I'm going to go back and redo those videos.
Yeah.
But your skill level will be coming up. Almost like those first level videos are your training. Yeah. And remember, and this is the thing as educators, we all tend to subscribe to. Mm-hmm. It's that when you're doing something, that's when you learn the most. Yeah. So throw yourself in at the deep end, get creating what's it you're creating, and come back and improve
but
it later.
It's a really good point, and it's something that again has come up throughout the discussions about how to create the perfect MOOC. And I don't think anybody has claimed that the first time you get it right. So there were some suggestions that you do a few iterations, pretty much like what we did on the Making MOOCs on a Budget MOOC, that the videos pretty much, I think most of them changed between the first delivery and the second delivery.
Yeah, and we changed the thrust of the MOOC as well. The second and third, there wasn't that big a change, but our priorities and what we saw was important for the learner changed.
Yeah.
So the structure and design changed as well.
So the first one was, I think maybe the intention was that the first one would be it, and with minor tweaking. Yeah. But in reality, it's a learning curve. You have to test things out
I would be a big fan of, I suppose, of the agile approach, and I would say if you say, I think there'll be 400 people might be interested in this. Well, don't go for 400 straight away. Mm-hmm. Build your MOOC with a target delivery on the first delivery of 1/10 of what you think your target audience is. So if we get 40 on it, it'll be a more intimate type of a MOOC. You'll feel less exposed.
Yeah.
You're more likely to do a good job. It's like a pilot.
Yeah.
You're more likely to do a good job
Mhm.
if you don't feel as exposed that there's millions of people or thousands or hundreds of people watching you. It may be even that you say, I'm going to do it with my existing learners that I'm going to use, and I'm going to get them to take the course online, and we can discuss things.
Maybe even do a couple of modules, like not do an entire course or something, just do it as a test with some friends or something. But I think that's, it is kind of a good point that, to manage your expectations, not to expect that the first time it is going to be perfect. This chances are, it won't be. But that's not a bad thing. It's, it's a learning curve that, things will get better.
And there's another area that I would tend to say there's differing opinion is how much effort to put into the design.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be generally of the opinion that it's very hard to come up with a perfect design. You can spend a lot of time on the design, that you need a fairly rapid approach to design, come up with good ideas about how you're going to structure your course, how the learning is going to take place, do it. And then review and redo it. And you could have between the first and second iteration, you could completely rebuild it. And you could say, was all that effort wasted in the first delivery? Because I'm doing everything again. But you have a so much clearer view of how you want to achieve what you want to achieve in the second one, that you could say that first test delivery was part of your design process. And chances are you won't completely rebuild it, but even if you did, what will come out of it might be a lot better.
No, but even, in the Making MOOCs on a Budget course, I think a lot of the videos that were developed for the first and the second delivery that didn't appear in the third, they're now useful to have in the additional resources at the end of the third delivery. So there's no wasted effort, really. There's just one other thing that has come up a little bit. A few people have been talking about another barrier that they have, that maybe, they now kind of feel pretty confident about making a MOOC, or trying to get started at least making MOOCs on a budget. But they've problems within their own institutions that they can't, or that they're not getting support. Is that a problem? Do you think that's going to change, or?
I don't know. I do believe there's a problem of institutions not wanting open learning materials or experiences out there that might reflect badly on them. And I think they overemphasize the importance of high production values. And if you were to say in your institution, listen, I'm going to do this, it's going to be fairly amateur. Look at the background here. We've just got a whiteboard. This is very plain. And if you say, this is what we're going to do, we're going to have a series of these, maybe PowerPoint slides, it's all going to be very simple. There is a danger that your institution say, no, that reflects too badly on our institution. Either you can't do it at all, or you do it, but don't put our branding on it. I would say, if they say you can't do it at all, that's just extremely unfortunate. That's driving you towards higher cost methods, which they may not allow you to do. If they say, okay, go ahead and do it, but you brand it, it doesn't have our branding on it. Well, that's not a bad start, because you can get out there and do it and see the reaction and come back to your management and say, look, how good this is. As I always say, if Salman Khan had brought his approach to teaching maths to a large organization and said, can I put these videos out into your brand? They would have said no. They're extremely plain and simple. They almost look crude the way he writes. Yet it was one of the most successful free online learning initiatives.
Okay, so just one kind of another question that maybe hasn't been the focus of the Making MOOCs on a Budget MOOC, but it's something that has come up a little bit in the module we did on retention and recruitment and retention. And we talk about bringing costs down to produce a MOOC, on the choice of platforms, how to use tools, etc. But something that came up in a little way was about learner readiness, because there are two sides. You produce to teach, but the learners need to sign up to learn, and they need to kind of stay on the MOOC or pick and choose good things. So do you think that we're ready for like lots and lots of people to sign up for these MOOCs that people are going to make? Are we heading for a MOOC revolution or not?
It's like a lot of these things, there's this whole idea of the tipping point, that it grows. You can't produce the product because before there's the customers, the customers won't emerge till the product emerges, and it grows sort of slowly. It enters the general consciousness. Chances are very few people out there know what MOOCs are, although there's probably a significant number, not huge, who know that there's lots of free online learning out there. I think a lot of people know that there's free learning materials. They go onto YouTube to find out how to fix their change the filter on their washing machine. But they don't quite realize that there's full courses out there, and some of them you can even buy credits as well, get an assessment. So I would say we're a while away from any great revolution on it. But we may reach a tipping point, and nobody knows when that tipping point will go. So suddenly people realize there are free courses out there. I can get a particular skill. And I suspect that it will break at some point. That could be 5 years from now. It could be 3 years from now. So,
but I guess it's kind of important to really kind of try and educate people who you think would be interested or would benefit from your MOOC on what they really are about, and try to, talk about them as much as possible, educate people about the possibilities of MOOCs.
Well, are you talking about educating people who would potentially take MOOCs? Yeah. I mean, I do believe that people need to learn about learning. And that in itself is not developed. Now we're wandering into general educational things. And part of that, people in fact, I would say that I would hope there come a day that in college courses, you'll be required to take several MOOCs or online courses preparing you for your professional life beyond college. Because an awful lot of the continuing education you're going to get after you leave formal education will be in the form of free online learning.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much it.
That's our
anything else?
The time lot. No, I think that's it. I mean, this was a general discussion we had. We hope it was useful to people. We hope maybe that this format might have been a bit engaging, but whether this format was or were not engaging, I think we'll learn a bit from it. We'll learn, maybe you'll learn. So take what you want from it and enjoy. And listen, thanks everybody for taking the MOOC. This is the last learning object formally in the MOOC, apart from some additional learning materials. It was a pleasure to interact with you all. I should say at this stage, hi to all our project partners. It was a pleasure to work with you. We have a few months' work to do yet to wrap up this. And by the way, if you're building a MOOC, please get in touch. We have to measure the impact of this, and we want to know what you're doing. So it's been a pleasure.
Okay, thanks.
Let's hope we can continue working together. Bye.
Bye.